call it the opportunity economy. You are well aware that right now many Americans are struggling. There's a crisis of affordability. One of your campaign themes is we're not going back. But I wonder what you say to voters who do want to go back when it comes to the economy specifically, because their groceries were less expensive, housing was more affordable when Donald Trump was president.
Well, let's start with the fact that when Joe Biden and I came in office, during the height of a pandemic, we saw over 10 million jobs were lost. Literally, we were all tracking the numbers. Hundreds of people a day were dying because of COVID. The economy had crashed. In large part, all of that because of mismanagement by Donald Trump of that crisis. When we came in, our highest priority was to do what we could to rescue America. And today, we know that we have inflation at under 3%. A lot of our policies have led to the reality that America recovered faster than any wealthy nation around the world. But you are right. Prices, in particular for groceries, are still too high. The American people know it, I know it, which is why my agenda includes what we need to do to bring down the price of groceries. For example, dealing with an issue like price gouging, what we need to do to extend the child tax credit to help young families be able to take care of their children in their most formative years, what we need to do to bring down the cost of housing. My proposal includes what would be a tax credit of $25,000 for first-time home buyers, so they can just have enough to put a down payment on a home, which is part of the American dream and their aspiration, but do it in a way that allows them to actually get on the path to achieving that goal and that dream.
What are your thoughts first? Because I'm going to play that clip, and then after I get your thoughts on that, I'm going to play the clip where she talked about immigration. What are your thoughts on her perspective on the economy and her slogan and what they chant at all of her rallies is "we not going back"? Whereas a lot of people are saying that, they enjoyed what happened 2016 through 2020 in a general sense. What are your thoughts on her loose policy without any details that a lot of people are detailing? It's pretty disastrous. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, to start off, she, blamed COVID for the mess that she was in, but those 10 million jobs were lost because you guys forced people to either take a vaccine or lose their job. You guys forced people to shut down their mom and pop's businesses. You forced people to shut down their office spaces, all due to this virus that you swore was so deadly and was so awful, only to 3 years later have Dr. Fauci testify on C-SPAN that Republicans and quote unquote conspiracy theorists were right the entire time. The vaccine did not work. The 6 feet did not work. The mask did not work. There was no real research behind any of these policies. So to start off to try and imply that Trump was the reason why she came into this large mess that needed to be cleaned up is really disheartening, because it was the Democrats who proposed that those 10 million jobs get lost. So then moving forward, how she's saying that, oh, I'm going to institute this new home buying program. Number one, where is the money going to come from? Number two, when are you going to explain why that $25,000 is less than the $150,000 being given to migrants? And then number three is even if you and try to give these people these $25,000 so that they can buy a home, what's to say that your plan doesn't end up, exploding like Bill Clinton's plan, in which we gave everybody a house, and then 20 years later we were in a recession, and those same people who were first-time home buyers lost their long-time homes because the economy simply could not handle all of these tax breaks and credits and other things on top of the foreign policy and all the other stuff that we had our hands in. And this economic situation that we're in now is way worse than the one that Bill Clinton was dealing with. We're not even seeing a surplus, and she's offering these things.
Yeah, I
So
often,
you have to think about, exactly, you just have to think about where the deficit is now, the fact that she's only planning to add to it. She has no realistic or logistical means of getting that money or being able to explain to you how it won't shake the economy or, worsen it. So she's literally selling dreams on the campaign trail, and she's selling the most vaguest of dreams at that. There's
you
no
know what?
details.
You know
There's
what?
nothing on the site so you can look it up.
You
Just,
are
hey,
you like my twin, because I often dissect the Clinton administration, and I lay a lot of the blame at his feet in hindsight, not only of what happened as far as being a manufacturer of the housing crisis, but also all of the jobs that left, North American Free Trade Agreement, allowing for our manufacturers to be able to do business over in China, where China stole our proprietary technology and they forced American companies to have to partner with them, which they then leveraged that technology to build their own companies. And then at the same time, it wasn't reciprocated over here in the United States of America. The fact that they still left the tariffs in place that Trump instituted as far as to try to even out the playing field, which also saved the steel industry. And then the same things that we praised Bill Clinton for back in the day, as far as what it is that he did in the White House and his indiscretions. We don't really hold them to the same the same standards that we hold politicians or we traded on Trump for today as a culture and as voters. I want to get your thoughts on this. I'm gonna play another clip really quickly, and then I want you to expound on what your thoughts are as far as what she's expressing to CNN and what. And let me add this also. They don't give the same energy to Kamala Harris as they gave to Trump and JD Vance when they pull up in our op territory. But let me play this clip really quickly, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. All right.
As Vice President, you were tasked with addressing the root causes of migration in southern countries and
Northern part of Central America.
the northern part
Yeah.
of Central America that affects the southern border of the U.S. During the Biden-Harris administration, there were record numbers of illegal border crossings. Why did the Biden-Harris administration wait 3.5 years to implement sweeping asylum restrictions?
Well, first of all, the root causes work that I did as vice president, that I was asked to do by the president, has actually resulted in a number of benefits, including historic investments by American businesses in that region. The number of immigrants coming from that region has actually reduced since we began that work. But I will say this, that Joe Biden and I and our administration worked with members of the United States Congress on an immigration issue that is very significant to the American people and to our security, which is the border. And through bipartisan work, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, a bill was crafted, which we supported, which I support. And Donald Trump got word of this bill that would have contributed to securing our border, and because he believes that it would not have helped him politically, he told his folks in Congress, don't put it forward. He killed the bill. A border security bill that would have put 1,500 more agents on the border. And let me tell you something, the Border Patrol endorsed the bill. And I'm sure in large part because they knew they were working around the clock, and 1,500 more agents would help them. That bill would have allowed us to increase seizures of fentanyl. Ask any community in America that has been devastated by fentanyl what passing that bill would have done to address their concern and a pain that they've experienced.
So you would push that legislation again. I just want to
Not
ask
only
about
push it, I will make sure that it comes to my desk and I would sign it.
What are your thoughts on her her response to being responsible, her and the Biden administration being responsible for what's happened at the border over the last 3.5 years?
This is where I think that they make it very clear and very obvious where they believe the intelligence level of their fans, their voters, lies. Because if you pay attention to the language the entire time she was answering the question, she didn't really answer the question, she dodged it. And I'm sure that there were a lot of important details that were left out, and it's surprising that, Miss Dana didn't point that out, because if it was Trump and JD, she definitely would have.
She would
So
have
let's
pressed him.
start talking about this region, right? She said that they've had historic investment in this region and that migration from said region has gone down. Where was this region? Canada, because they're the only ones looking at us like we some fools, wondering what in the world are we doing over here. So if y'all put some historic investment in Canada and maybe decrease the migration from Canada, it had nothing to do with y'all. It had everything to do with the fact that they don't want to come here anymore because migration has increased from literally everywhere else. Then let's go ahead and talk about, she talked about that there was a bill, right? And he killed the bill. Understand that this wasn't just a border protection bill. This was a completely different bill. Hold on, buddy. This was a completely different bill. Yes, you can go. This was a completely different bill that had different line items that Trump probably didn't agree with. So, but instead of saying, and then she also said that this bill would have added to the border security. Not that this bill was strictly for border security. So border security was probably a line item in whatever this bill was. And I wish I could think of it off the top of my head before somebody talk about me losing credibility. But for a prime example, when it comes to these student loan bills that they were passing, right? They love to talk about how Republicans vote them down. Yet what they don't publicize is the fact that all of these student loan bills have had multi-$100 million aid packages to Ukraine. So one of the last ones that they passed, in which they celebrated that this new round of forgiveness was going out, they did not mention CNN and The Hill quietly put out there that also in that bill, $900 million were
Yep.
going to Ukraine. So while we're talking about how Trump got word of this bill and he read it and he didn't like it, don't act like he did it for political purposes or that he did it to stop his reelection, because passing said bill would have only helped his reelection. You know, regardless of who passed it, at the end of the day, that's something he ran on. So the general consensus in America would have still been that he did it. So acting like he didn't pass it because he was concerned about the Democrats getting credit for it is a blunt-faced lie.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, to act like, just the language itself isn't the reasoning for it not being passed is yet another lie. And then to not mention the fact that in the last 3.5 years, you were the border czar. So
Yep.
you had the ability to bring these border issues to the forefront of this administration, and you chose not to. You were the border czar. So you had every power to get up and call a press conference whenever you wanted to, and could have talked about how the migrant issue has gotten out of control and you guys needed to pass a bill immediately. And right now, since the Dems are basically in control of everything, there should have been no reason why you couldn't have gotten a bill passed in your 3.5 years. And
Yep.
as you be, the tiebreaker whenever there's a problem, sweetheart, if you really put your all into this bill and you really did your job as borders are, then we would see a better handling of our border. But we don't. And so it's sad that, again, they know people aren't paying attention to the language. She was
Yeah.
very selective of the language. The prosecutor in her really came out. And for people who are not, the more analysis type, for the people who take things for face value, they would feel like she did a good job. But for those of us that are critical thinkers, the majority of the people you find in the Republican Party, we all know that that interview was complete BS. And
Yep.
she didn't answer any questions. She didn't do anything to deliver to anybody who was watching that interview, hoping that they were going to get some answers. Nothing was answered.